Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ferguson of Redwood Fellows. Welcome to Stories from the Grove, a podcast production of Redwood Fellows made possible thanks to the generous support of CCM. Our media is filled with examples of people exploiting their differences to pull us apart. This is different. Stories from the Grove is about leaders who seek to lean into their differences so they can understand each other, find common ground to strengthen Connecticut. I hope you enjoy Stories from the Grove.
Ava Bermudez Zimmerman.
I'm Ella Crivello. This is fun.
Stories from the Grove.
Yeah. I was thinking about all of our retreats and always just like looking at you with amazement and inspiration. You just always were so real and fun and just like bring in a little bit of joy into serious moments in ways that I really appreciated. So I was like, oh, I'm excited. I'm excited.
That is very kind of you. I've never thought of myself as someone who brings joy, but thank you.
Oh my God. No, I felt it right away. And also, that we have a wide range of ages, which is so wonderful. But I also was like, okay, 30s. Like I can tell the intergenerational divide in some ways. But yeah, where do you want to start? How should we do this?
Well, we were talking about hair.
Yeah. Where do your curls come from? Where are you from? Tell me.
Oh, my curls come from my African roots, Puerto Rican. And I feel like in Connecticut, oftentimes saying I'm Puerto Rican, I don't get that sense of pride because there's so many Puerto Rican people in Connecticut. Whereas like when I went, my brother lived in California for quite some time. And when folks asked me, what are you? They just couldn't place ethnicity. And I'd say I'm Puerto Rican. I felt so exotic. They're like, I've never met anyone from Puerto Rico. There's a lot of Southeast Asian culture in California, especially in Los Angeles, but not so common Caribbean. And my curls are from the Caribbean. My mom's side has more African roots, West African according to 23andMe. And then my dad's side has more, we always assumed it was Spanish roots, but apparently it's mostly Portuguese. And the irony is that I lived in Brazil and learned Portuguese, so who knew?
Perfect.
Inadvertently getting to my roots. But yeah, talking about curls is like a gateway to talking about everything.
I know. I already am like, oh, I wanted to.
How about your curls? Yeah, where are your curls from?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned 23andMe because I've shared with some Redwood Fellows, but now I'll share with everyone. I didn't know my mom's ethnicity until last year, 2 years ago.
That's big.
Yeah. So we always thought, my dad is half Italian.
Okay.
My parents both grew up in Montreal. I'll stop clapping.
Oh.
My parents both grew up in Montreal. And we knew stories from my mom of her childhood. She grew up in foster care.
Okay.
And she knew that she had met her mother, who she believed was Irish. Turns out she was Scottish. And, as she was older in her teens, and her mother told her that her father, who was not in the picture, was Black and said he was Jamaican. And so my whole life I've had this kind of like invisible tie to Jamaican culture. My mom's name is Marlene, and she called herself Marley her whole life.
Love it.
And then I was thinking about building my own family and would go to the doctor and get like, do you have X, Y, and Z in your family history? Is there anything we should be thinking about as you're thinking about conceiving? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that my mom and dad are both young and healthy. And I just decided, it just felt like I wanted to stop saying I don't know. Like I just was over it. And so I got her 23andMe one year for Christmas. I couldn't do it for myself. And this was like 7 years ago.
Okay.
And
so a whole lifetime. She was living a whole life in that identity.
Yeah. And not even really. It was always, she has a story that she would look through the phone book, and her last name is Saunders, and she would see a bunch of Saunders and call them, and the Yellow Pages, sorry, and call them and say, just like, listen, this is a story she's told me. And she said a lot of them had Jamaican accents. So I just assumed we were Jamaican.
So birth name was Saunders.
Her given name was Saunders. She was raised in many foster homes. She did stay in one for a set amount of years, but, she was on her own at 14. So she just, she was just scraping for that identity and Jamaican because of that, because of like that murmur that her birth mother gave her at one point when she was an early teen. She just was like, okay, we're Jamaican. We're going to go on. And she just, I grew up in New York City and went to a very progressive school. And my mom also is gay. And, we just had so much pride in like diversity, and just we were like, this is who we are. This is, this is just, we can be proud. I mean, thank goodness, right? Like that is not everyone's story. And so then after the 7 years ago, I gave her this. We found out some health history. It just felt a little bit, it was, I was in my, early nonprofit days, so I couldn't get her like the highest upgraded version of the history.
You could, yeah.
So we found out like, okay, 50% West African, 50% Northern European. That checks out.
Sounds like me, like most Caribbean people.
And we're like, okay, that checks out. And then this is such a funny, long way to answer. Where'd you get your curls?
It goes to the root. Literally, no pun intended. It goes to the root.
But long story short, a few years ago, she gets a call, and she'll be comfortable with me sharing this story because it's so wild. She gets a call. I think you're my sister.
Whoa.
Whoa. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not going to share all of her family and childhood trauma and all that, but it was heavy and hard, and also like, holy moly, this is amazing. And so after years, I mean, just from just a little bit of fear and also just the unknown, she finally met up with who turned out to be her half-sister, who
really?
Her whole life
that's beautiful.
Has been living streets away from her.
Streets in New York?
In Montreal. She
moved
moved back to Montreal.
Yeah,
she moved back to Montreal when I was in college.
Crazy.
And so she is very close with her. She also has 2 half brothers. We ended up meeting them. They shared that they're actually Bajan from Bahamas. So not Jamaican, but it was so much closure.
The roots
is the roots. And it was just, I mean, I looked at her hands and they looked like mine and my mom's.
Ooh,
and I was like, I mean, it was, and her mother, her birth mother, they share the same dad, her birth mother is also of Irish, maybe German. Like she's white.
Similar.
So they're
similar
both mixed, and they are. It's just beautiful. I mean, they just are like have this blossoming, relationship, and she's really pushing my mom, who grew up. As a teen with an afro, but then always passing white. She's very light skinned. And she's like, you got to get connected to your Black roots. And she's
they're
like,
real. Yeah.
Yeah. But
they're
that's,
real.
when you've had a lifetime, she unfortunately grew up in quite racist homes. And, you have a lifetime not having anything to connect to and just trying your best. But I won't share too much.
I asked my dad, so I mentioned I lived in Brazil. I did an exchange program. And in the application for the exchange program, it was Rotary. They allow you to put your preferences of where you want to go. And I wanted to go to Japan. I was that kid that loved anime and was fascinated with Japanese culture and was, learning Japanese on my own, trying to figure it out. I did not get Japan. Japan was not on the table for me.
They're like, we'll put you far, but a little different direction.
So apparently, and I found this out when I moved to Brazil, they chose Brazil for me because Brazil has the second biggest population of Japanese contingency in the world.
Really?
So other than Japan, you got Brazil. And then even more fascinating, in 1895, the government of Brazil passed a law, a creed called Brancamento Total, which means whitening, total whitening.
Oh,
real
okay.
racist.
I was excited until I wasn't.
not real racist. That they gave free land and agricultural subsidies to individuals from countries that were white, and Japan made the cut. So through different iterations of this same decree being offered to a multitude of white cultures, you have Germans who moved before the war. So not Nazi Germans, but Germans who moved before the war to Brazil and South America. You have, Dutch folks, and there's little communities in Brazil that are entirely of that culture, that still speak the language, that still live and congregate in that reality. More so Japan than any other. Because Japan is not known to be a culture that likes to diversify. They like to stay true to their culture and to their identity, meaning they don't really marry outside of their race. So here I am, a kid wanting to go to Japan, shipped over to Brazil, but with a Japanese family. Fully Japanese family. We live in São Paulo, Miranópolis, São Paulo, and then Santa Catarina. Itajaí. So different parts, because they had property.
I just wanted you to say more things.
Oh, yeah. With the accent. But what brings you to the connection to your story and the realization of your mom and her siblings, right? Her newfound siblings, is that something that I learned through that interaction, through that Japanese interaction, and through their children who are trying to figure out and navigate a sense of culture being brought up by, Camila, my host sister. Her father was Japanese. He was born and raised in Japan and had moved to Brazil in his 30s. And then her mom was first generation. So her parents had already, reaped the benefits of that, of the many years of that offering. And I asked her, who do you identify? Because Camila was very Brazilian. Yeah. She knew samba and pagode, and she ate all the foods. And she was insulted by my question. She's like, "What do you mean? I'm Brazilian." And I'm like, "Are you?" And here I am. In the United States, there's a sense of Americanness. We all get to live in our Americanness, be American. And if we have the ability to celebrate another culture, that is allowed and welcomed. Maybe not so much so these days. Maybe there's a lot of pushback in society of really embodying your culture and your identity. But I feel like in immigrant narratives here, a lot of my friends and the conversations we have, it's a welcoming of that you could be this and that. You can be both, and it's okay. Whereas Brazil is mostly made up of, the very diverse mix of African, European culture, this melting pot similar to the Caribbean. And to be Brazilian typically is to be a three blend of native Portuguese or, mostly Portuguese, and then African. And after generations, 400, years later, here I am, I'm Brazilian. So I'm like, Camila, you're like pure Japanese. And she's like, I am Brazilian. And I'm owning that. And she's like, to me, and this is coming from a 16-year-old girl. Wow, to find her identity. She's like, yes, I understand I'm Japanese by descent, but I am culturally ethnic. I am Brazilian. My music, my food, my desires, my passion. This is my culture as much as it is theirs. And there is no there here. So then that introspection, then I asked my dad, I'm like, Dad, am I Puerto Rican? Like,
Right.
this girl's like so firm on her culture.
Right.
And I'm like, am I Puerto Rican or am I American? Because I was born in the States. So I'm like, am I Puerto Rican like you're Puerto Rican? And his answer was, Bebe, you get to decide who you want to be, So your mom, even though she maybe missed out on, let's say 40 years of not being Bayesian, right?
Yeah.
Because she didn't know. And now she's newly found in that reality. It's a choice.
Yeah.
You have those roots. You have, somehow you are connected to that Caribbean reality. But it's not like you get to sever ties just because you discovered new information. It's a choice that you get to make if you want to double down on this new reality. I think to each their own, know.
And it's so beautiful, right? I mean, like you're saying, for a 16-year-old to have that much pride and conviction and just, awareness is incredible. And for my mom to now be tentatively finding that is also incredible. And for me too. I mean, I haven't even broached, how this feels for me yet. And so like, it's a journey. It's like and it's just, it's kind of a metaphor for life, right? Like I'm thinking about there's these, these walls we put up that are just, fabricated. I mean, it's just that we can constantly be, of course, bettering ourselves, but we can constantly be feeling like we are identifying in ways that feel more authentic. And if that changes the next day or the next year, that's great.
That's okay.
That's okay. That's not only okay, that's great.
We should be allowed the exploration.
And I feel like, it's just been, I'm just thinking about like, how people just have so much, not only from an ethnic and racial perspective, but also so much of their identity wrapped up in where they live and where they work. And it's just like, I find it so inspiring when people, shed that. I just found out someone yesterday is retiring at 43 and they're leaving Connecticut. They're in Bridgeport. They're moving to Portugal.
Wow.
I was like, good for you. But like, why? Like, why do we have these rules around like, that's not okay? Of course that's okay. If that feels like that's what you need in this moment.
Yeah.
Power to you.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just my opinion.
She wanted to get out of the wheel, the hedonic wheel.
I didn't get into, it was a very quick update and get into the why.
The why. Okay. What the motivation?
Yeah,
the motivation.
I'm sure there's many reasons, but I was curious. I'm just like so curious because we haven't had a chance to talk one-on-one yet, which is wild. But I just want to hear more about how you got into your work. I mean, unless you don't, we can keep going. No,
it's just all things go back to Brazil.
Yes.
So I was brought. Both of my parents are activists. So when I was very little, 2 years old, my parents signed myself and my siblings up to be plaintiffs in the Sheff versus O'Neill case, which is a education desegregation funding case. And that led, I guess most people might not recognize Sheff v. O'Neill, but they do recognize the magnet schools that exist in the state of Connecticut. So when you hear CREC or, when you hear RESC, regional education, they're schools that allow for, within the public school setting, for busing in and busing out of students in order to obtain a more diverse and more fair educational opportunity. So that was created because of the Sheff case. And when I was little, and my parents are educators, my dad, he had his teaching degree and moved here. He was in the Army and was literally looking for where could he raise his family since he's in the United States and his time was almost done with the Army. He lived in a couple of different states, wasn't really wasn't vibing. And his friend said, well, there's a lot of Puerto Ricans because of tobacco that live in Connecticut and Massachusetts. He lived in Massachusetts, had my brother, and, they had him in Worcester, didn't like it, wasn't really keen. And then started applying to different jobs nearby and got offered a position in Hartford. So then Hartford at that point was in its peak time of gang violence and a lot of crime, high crime rate, a lot of high death rates. Unfortunately, students being caught in the crossfire. But they were looking for educators that were from the island that spoke Spanish that could relate to the influx of students that were Spanish speaking. So they offered him a position. He took it, and the friends that he met that had master's degree, that were professionals, that were also Latinos, many of them moved to the suburbs with this intention of getting away. Like we've made it. We are beyond our poverty. We've grown to this place in society that we've earned to live in the burbs and be professionals and raise our kids in suburbia. But what my dad noticed, and I didn't exist, right? He was noticing that a lot of these kids that were growing up were having a lot of access to confusion, access to drugs, and getting embroiled in a lot of situations that weren't really healthy due to confusion of self. Like they didn't know their culture, they didn't know their placement. They're, a Black kid, brown kid in white America. Nobody else looked like them. And this disconnection really pushed these kids to, losing themselves. And then that with other reasons why a young person does drugs, right? A multitude. He didn't want that for us. So he's like, I'm going to put my kids, I'm going to make sure that we stay in Hartford. We're going to live in Hartford. We're not going to go to suburbia. The intention was that they'll get to know at least their roots and meet other students that look just like them. And even though the schools aren't good, we'll fix it. So then that's where the court case came in. We're going to fix it. Wow. So from 2 years old all the way to my full childhood existence, every weekend, every spare moment, every family event had some social activity, some activism, a rally, and organizing a picket. Oh I was that kid on my dad's shoulders, that kid holding my mom's hand while we're navigating a rally. And it wasn't just supporting the educational cause. It was also like supporting activism in all of its nature. So if I remember there was a strike in Hartford that was hitting like its 5th year near our house. And we'd go there on the weekends and bring food and really show our support to the nursing home workers. My dad became a union steward. He was very involved in his union. But all of that activism led to a reality where you can raise 3 kids. And at that point, my mom wasn't working in the school system yet. So they were raising 3 kids with 2 cars in the driveway, with a nice house in, the south end of Hartford on one salary. Because they worked so hard on union contracts that the teachers were making, good money, like enough. And the economy was different. Yeah. So back to your question of like, how did I get into this? Inadvertently, right? So I knew by the time I was thinking about what am I going to do for college, where do I see myself? I'm like nowhere near my parents. I didn't want to follow in their footsteps. I'm like, that's exhausting to hold all this weight on your shoulders of helping people through activism. Like, that is not me. I want to help people, but not like that. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I'm like, that's where I was the science nerd. I was on the robotics team. I won the science fairs. Like I won 3 science fairs. I made it to states twice. The quintessential nerd, I was like really the full stereotype, reading science books for fun. I remember reading Einstein's Greatest Blunder at 13 for fun about physics and like black holes.
Sure. Not me.
And then I went, I went to Brazil. Then I went to Brazil and with Rotary, you had to pick up projects very similar. That program was very similar to what people might know as like Peace Corps.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a project while you're there for the full entirety of your trip that is service to the community.
Mm-hmm.
And my service in the community was working at a hospital. And I thought this is a precursor to me then going to pre-med and then go to med school. And I'll have a better understanding of this job that I really am passionately pursuing, you know, this career I'm building for myself in my mind. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It was, not only was it depressing to the point where like a lot of the kids that we were servicing that hospital, they had real health needs, but they also didn't have bare necessities.
Mm-hmm.
They'd come to the clinic shoeless, and in South America, specifically this area of Brazil, they had monsoon season. Mm-hmm. My understanding of monsoon, like the only connection to the word monsoon was Jumanji, like where they had the monsoon in Jumanji. And I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of rain.
Yeah.
It's rain for 2 months where it can flood up to 3 feet of water, and it can sweep you away. It is raining. So these kids, I still had to go to work in the clinic, and these kids would come in without shoes, without, you know, proper attire to survive this rain, no umbrella or anything. And then in addition to that, we have to like meet their needs for not having access to vaccinations, having a fever, you know, putting themselves in jeopardy to having brain development problems because the high fever has spiked for so long. I thought that there's got to be another way. So then 16-year-old me said, we got to do something. And it was that year, it was also the election for Lula. And in that Lula, it was his first run. He was the great white hope. Mm-hmm. He was like the end all be all for like, we're going to change things and society in Brazil is going to be so different. So I started campaigning for Lula.
Oh my gosh.
I had, you know, at home, I canvassed when I was little. My dad let me canvass, go door knocking by myself at 12 for Al Gore. So I'm like, I wasn't so far removed from what, you know, political door knocking looks like and poll standing. So I went it all in for Lula. And I'm like, well, he's saying that he's going to fix and get the kids some shoes and make sure that the clinics have medicine because they have universal health care. So that's totally logical. And that path brought me right back to my parents' reality. Yeah. And by the time I left Brazil, I'm like, this is it. This is it.
And you're 16, you said?
I was 16, yeah. I was 16.
Amazing.
But I had a lot of very strong-willed 16-year-olds around me who knew who they were.
Yeah.
And by 17, when I moved to Puerto Rico to go to university, I'm like, I was firm on that. I was firm. I wanted to change public policy. I was firm. I wanted to be an activist and figure out ways to change laws that would help people. And as I say now, 20 years into a career, which is insane, 20 years into a paid career in organizing, it's not a passion project. It's a lifestyle. I think any real activist, any real organizer doesn't keep the intensity just for a paycheck or for or for some self-fulfillment. It is truly this idea that society will be better and the outcomes will be better by you putting the effort in. So to me, it's a lifestyle. I didn't expect to be doing this, years later, but even if I had decided to pursue science and medicine, I'm pretty sure it would have always circled back to activism.
Yeah.
Long-winded.
I love that. No, it's, I was just listening. Thank you for sharing that. And it's just so, I love hearing people's stories. And I just was listening today I've become obsessed with Trevor Noah because I
just read his book for the first time. And I know I'm so late on this.
I know, 2 days fantastic. For me. Yeah, it's fantastic. So that was where it started.
Because of the fellowship, because people kept mentioning
really?
From our book swap. People kept mentioning, the book.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
no, he's brilliant and obviously hilarious. And I, for Christmas, got my husband and I went to see his stand-up in Stanford. And it just has like taken on a whole new meaning for me of just like how much I look towards him for, if I'm just like having a lull in my day or I'm driving and just like in the thick of like the pickup drop off, rush, I'm just like, I'm putting on his podcast because he has such a incredible way of humanizing and accepting everyone as they are. And also just being so authentic to like his curiosity. Like I just find the way that he brings in guests and the way he asks questions and the way he does his stand-up and, there's just this, there's not just comedy, it's like philosophy, it's history, it's just like genuine curiosity about just understanding how things work, how people work, why people work. I mean, it's just, I just find him inspiring and feel really connected to that side of his curiosity. And one of his guests today was a journalist, and she's talking about, just this default to optimism that she's trying to have in all of her life. And I'm kind of hearing it in some of your story of just, why can't we change the things we want to change? And instead of just this like knee-jerk pessimism, she shared a story of, in October 1903, she was looking for some project in New York Times archives, and she saw a article that was like, flying machines will never fly. Like it was basically just like, stop trying to make planes work. Like just stop. It is not worth it. It's not a good economic choice. And 2 months later, the Wright brothers had their first flight. And it just kind of I just was positioning this moment in our country, in our state, in my life of just all of these moments where like pessimism is easier. And where like, I know you're in the child care.
Oh,
space.
Perseverance is real.
You have to just
keep pushing,
keep getting up and keep having that hope and looking for that hope and finding the joy in it. And that's why I was kind of talking about, like, I just appreciated how like you just, you just have this air about you that, that you can tell there's that optimism, because what else is it for if you're not optimistic and wanting to continue to make the world better or our community better or our family better? I mean, you can go as narrow or as wide as you want. And I loved that story. And I just I'm hearing it in kind of your story as well.
To use the phrase from Estelle Perel, how do we...
Esther, yeah.
Yeah. Esther?
Yeah.
Oh, the Montreal in you. Okay. Yeah. The Montreal. Esther. I love it.
I love her.
She always asks in her sessions, how do you fuel the tank? Like what basically like what motivates you? How do you recharge? And I think in the nonprofit world, our core values that our mission statement, or if it's our North Star, our moral compass, however you want to phrase it, it brings us to this introspection. Because we're not in careers that you're not becoming a billionaire from trying to help people, and it's hard work. It is continuously. It doesn't matter what type of nonprofit work you do. Without a doubt, if you're doing nonprofit work, that means you've heard hardship. You've seen hardship. You've been at the center of people in need, and
oftentimes lived it yourself.
Yes. So you're this introspection is part of that narrative. And if you're in that nexus between the advocacy and then the political, their juxtaposition, you have this introspection and this realization that it's not fair, the system's not fair, hardship is real, mixed with the political end of we're not going to get there, or enough is enough, or that's not our role. So these two worlds are constantly colliding. And if you're a staffer in between those realities, you have to figure out a way to navigate it. Like, how do you make the hardship that is very real, that introspection and reminder of like, I'm doing this for all the right reasons, resonate with the political world that's always pushing and telling you that enough is enough. And you're saying enough is never enough when someone is dying, when someone is waiting, when someone...
rights are being taken away.
Yeah.
We're never given in the first place. Yeah. I know. I am in our work, we are constantly hearing and surrounded by just people being awoken to their hardship. And for a lot of folks, that's extremely uncomfortable and unusual and something that they try to avoid. And I know through my own experience and certainly through my work, when you can find with choice of how you get there, that path towards being just aware of that hardship. And not only that, like, it's just, we're a nonprofit, we grind through it, but also just like, how does this feel in my body? How is this impacting my productivity, my life, my relationships to myself?
Yeah.
Am I actually taking care of myself? Like, when you can get to that point, that's where change is happening. And that awareness has been almost the hardest barrier for us, just awareness of like why this matters, awareness how to, find ways to support yourself that can work, specifically in our work through mindfulness, but, there's many, many different tools and practices that, and support systems and resources that get people there. But it's so amazing and exciting. And, sometimes hard for people to sit with that like rage or that fear or that worry and actually accept that so that they can move through it.
How did you transition from, understanding mindfulness for yourself and then being able to create spaces where advocates and staff, right, nonprofit staff, are taking moments for mindfulness in themselves? Like, how did you transition into, okay, I need to take care of myself, and then say, oh, I can also bring these attributes to other people, right, because they also need it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't take credit for the idea. The organization was founded 10 years before I joined.
Okay. With that in mind.
It was volunteer run. No, not necessarily. It was volunteer run by an incredible group of founders that had their own journeys and their own decades of careers, but found a lot of value in sitting together and coming intentionally to, at that point, really just meditate together and like not, in so many ways, in so many practices, certainly in the ancient wisdom and ancient history of it, it is a very insular, singular, independent practice. And for them, they had the privilege of, experiencing retreats and had the privilege and wanted to have that be something that was not just, these special trips or these special moments, and actually just a regular part of their way to connect with their community. And so they started really small and just started inviting people and started hosting at public libraries. And then they started realizing that this is something that can be brought to schools. And then, there was, a theory of change around like there is no reason that this should be seen as a luxury. Right now, there is this notion that this is something that can only be accessed if you have time, money, privilege, go to a yoga studio. And that could not be farther from the truth, but there is that misconception. And so, when I joined, it was shortly after the theory of change where they realized we need to put all of our energy into access for under-resourced communities. And we need to hire someone. We can't do this volunteer. We need to hire someone. This is a mission. We see the need. We hear how important it is. We need to hire someone who can help us, do this in a way that meets that need. And so I was someone sent me the job description, and I had my own journey that was quite fresh. At this point, I've been at Community Mindfulness Project for 3 years, but I had my own journey that compared to our founders and our board members, who had decades of practice, I was 3 years in, actually, because I shared with our cohort, but I was just trying to survive motherhood.
Yeah.
I just, I had access to mental health support and care through, thankfully, to my husband's credit, pushing me to go to a therapist for a few years. And, I just was working, as you're saying, these really intense jobs. I was traveling the world, and just, had the stamina for it. But was really proud. I loved my life. I loved how hard I worked, but I became a mother in COVID, and all of these rules that I thought were showing me how to be a great leader and be a great, change agent and all the things were just survival. They were just keeping me going every day. So by the time 2020 hit, and I became a mother unintentionally, I was, not planning to be a mother in the pandemic.
Surprise.
It was just, nope. I was oh, wow, I'm pregnant and we are in a global pandemic. This is scary. I just broke me. It just broke me. I didn't have any support system, any of the village. Obviously we had so much privilege, and still I was so alone. And so, I was just really struggling, and not just mentally, the physical struggle was just compounding and colliding every single day with the mental struggle. I was recovering from a C-section. Being with a newborn baby is
lactating
is being in a marathon and being chased and being hit by a bus all the same time. It's just no. Yeah. And I am so that's how I found it, because I just didn't have a choice.
You were piecing yourself together.
I just was I need to sleep. Yeah. My baby's sleeping. I need to sleep. Why am I not sleeping? And I just finally remembered, an app that someone told me about, and found it for myself. And it made me sleep. Thank God. And it made me kinder to myself, because I just didn't give myself the space or the time to really recognize everything that was going on, not only in my little tiny apartment, but in the world and in the country. And, I'm reading news as I'm nursing of, the dead counting. That is not normal. Yeah. And I know that's so many people's experience. So,
it makes me think of the analogy or the example of when the masks drop in a plane and you have to make sure that
oxygen mask on first. 1,000%. We talk about that a lot. And so to answer your question, I came in and was so amazed by the foundation the organization had built, and just immediately, we just really thought about the strategy. And I had experience in nonprofit, but we were also hearing from so many of our partners and so many organizations that I felt inspired by, that I wanted to support. It's we need you to stay in your jobs And if, in Connecticut, one of the latest stats is 77% of nonprofits cite burnout as their top workforce issue.
Yeah.
Like,
sounds
that
about right.
is insane. And that's like probably an underestimate. That's who they surveyed and who actually was honest about it. It's just, it is so essential to the health of our society for nonprofits to retain their staff, to stay connected to their community, to not, we see a lot of vicarious trauma on the front lines. We see a lot of empathy fatigue. If you're every single day working face to face with people who are just in the toughest moments of their lives, that has a weight. And so, not only do we work with the clients in recovery or individuals in, transitioning post-incarceration, but we support the staff that are supporting them. And we want to really make sure. And so, it just felt so essential to just the fabric of where I see the opportunity, and I hope we will continue to move in that direction. But yeah. Like, what was your question? I'm so wrapped up.
No, you answered it.
Yeah.
The transition between you finding that self, finding that centering, and then going into doing it for others. You definitely answered it.
Yeah,
that discovery, and like you said, COVID allowed you that realization of like, whoa, you need that air mask, right? You need to put that mask on yourself, or you can't.
And I experienced what it was like to do it alone, and I realized how much more powerful it is to do it with others and to really feel connected in, this effort to be better towards ourselves and be better towards our community. And so that is why all of our programs, we have sessions, we have workshops, we have training courses. It's all in groups. It's all sitting in circles. Some of them are virtual circles. But, we don't need any more apps. We don't need any more disconnection. We need more connection. We need people kneeling in even more to, smiling in front of each other and just being like, you're not alone. Like, this is freaking hard. This is insane.
I asked my team last year for every year we do a staff retreat, and I asked them, and the previous retreats is we did lunch. And we're real corny. Yeah. It's nice. But then last year, because things are so heavy, and we had just as an organization won universal childcare, and we were all of us at the brink of burnout because it took so much energy to get to that victory. That after legislative session, I knew that we needed something more substantial, but I also didn't want to impose my idea of what is enough or what could be good. So we surveyed the team, and then the top 3 options were what do they call a scream room?
Oh my God, I've never.
Yeah, where you scream and you break things.
Oh,
yeah,
where you have the hammer. And you
yes, and then
I love that.
And then, which exists in Connecticut, I had no idea. And then there was an option of archery, like an adventure, team building, woods thing.
Yeah.
What we landed was we did a duo combo of an escape room with some moments where you can break stuff in this escape room. Yeah. And then we also did Kripalu, which did a full, I don't even know what to call yoga, meditation, mindfulness retreat.
Oh, wow.
It was
so
beautiful.
Yeah.
This combination of, I had never done anything like that with coworkers where you specifically take time out where part of the day you're in silence and in community with no expectations or conversation, but you're sharing space. And then the way that Kripalu, their sessions, and then the other part of the day was being mindful to yourself, doing a sound bath, doing guided meditation. Yeah. We came back, it was just 2 days, between just 2 days, and we came back refreshed. I couldn't.
That's
like I'm so stuck to this idea of in previous jobs where our retreats we're stuck somewhere for 2 days to talk about work
strategy sessions.
Yes.
Yeah. And I like
strategizing.
horrible conference room with fluorescent light. No,
Yes.
I mean, but even just it's so, first of all, good on you to take, I know you're saying just 2 days, but that's 2 days. That's like a serious investment of time. And I just am really impressed. But I also am kind of laughing because, so much of what we do around awareness building is, like you said, the example of archery or escape room, like those also are mindfulness. Like you are being present, you are being very hyper aware of, like, I'm not thinking about something that happened in the past. I'm not thinking about all the worries of the future. Like, we talk a lot about just thinking about the practice as you're walking your dog, or thinking about, I right now in this season of life, I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old next week. When I'm rocking my children to sleep or giving them a hug, that's like a chance to take a deep breath and like regulate myself and just like actually remember, like, no, this is not a crisis. Like, I'm okay. We are safe. We are healthy. And, for some people it's gardening, for some people. And so like, that is just, that's the work of just like really recognizing and taking, stock of, that this can be integrated into your lives. And those 2-day retreats, when you're lucky to have them, are so meaningful and so important. And also just the connection between your team. Like, that's incredible.
The connection was, I was surprised how much you can learn about someone that you think you know well, because you're, working in such close spaces so frequently. With a small team, and most nonprofits are tiny. So like, it's not like you get lost in a multitude of employees. We know each other pretty well. We see and talk to each other every day, and seeing them out of the element of work was a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
There was this moment in the escape room, the end of the escape room, where you had to crack a sphinx in order to get the mystery key.
They're always so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. But like, my reaction is like, don't break it. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble. And then another coworker's like, break it. And then it was just hysterical. The reactions of like, the stepping up and stepping back, the who's leading and sharing space.
Just like laughing
being
together.
Being mindful of, are you scared? Are you claustrophobic? We got you. Like those little moments and different out of the setting, being out of the setting of work and doing something together that's unique.
It gives people a chance to take on a different role. I love that.
Yeah. There is no, who's in charge, who's not in charge. We're all in charge.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
It's a special.
Which is life, right?
Yeah.
We fit ourselves into these boxes of someone has to tell us what to do. This is how you do it. But a lot of the solutions that are the most successful are solutions that are creative, that are not anticipated, solutions that definitely did not, that solution was most likely not the iteration in the beginning. It ebbed and flowed, and maybe it's the 10th version of what it could have been by the end of it. There's no cut and paste version.
No. Oh my gosh. This has been so lovely.
Yeah.
I'm like,